Hey everybody, Dave Hagan here. Think about this. As coronavirus shrinks, opportunity grows. That's today on the Financial Wellness Podcast, Coronavirus Edition.
Welcome to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to the financial success. Here is your host, financial problem solver and talk show host, Dave Hagan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Financial Wellness Podcast, or the TFWP, as we like to call it. We're coming to you from 4 different locations via Zoom today, which I think is our new default way of doing things. And who do we have here with us today? Hey, look, it's Nick Appel.
David Hagan, how you doing?
Good. You?
Man, I'm loving it right now. The weather is beautiful, and I am graduating in a couple months. Can you believe it?
Nicely played, sir. You've just passed your 3rd year of law school.
Passed my 3rd year of law school and passed my $200,000 in debt. So it's pretty good.
Oh, we're going to talk about that next episode. And as always, Mr. Brian Reed. Brian, how you doing?
Mr. Hagan, I'm doing very well, buddy. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you.
Likewise. So everybody feature this. We're like big kids here today. We're Zooming, and we just figured out how to use this digital filter thing. So I've got some sunglasses on. Brian's got a red beret on.
I'm going to be French, so I'm going to be rude today, guys, just so you know.
And Nick's got some like little tied up bandana situation.
I'm having my inner Minnie Mouse today.
There we go. And our engineer, Scott, has nothing because, frankly, he's above it all. Hey, check this out. This episode's going to drop February 22, 2021. And it means that we've been in this coronavirus thing now for just about a year. Can you believe that? In California, we've shut down the economy twice. I mean, think of all the things that we've had to deal with the last year. The daily press conferences at noon, the Cuomo show on CNN, the mayor of Los Angeles show, the governor of California show, all these things that we've had to do. And it's been a tough year. According to Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center, we've lost almost 2.5 million people worldwide. 2.5 million people. Almost 500,000 people in the United States. Almost 500,000 people. Life has changed forever, even for the living. Here's just a few examples. One, we Zoom now for everything, both business and personal. And yeah, that's good. There's less commuting. There's less pollution. We have more time during our day. It's probably a more efficient business model. Just as an example, I gave another guest lecture this week at Cal State Long Beach. And if I had to drive all the way down there, I probably would not have done so.
Dave, you cool guy, you.
Well, I like to try and hang out with the hip and the relevant. What can I say? And by the way, to all the students out there, a shout out to all the students. We talked about wants and needs and marketing and business strategy and how personal finance in some ways resists that business strategy, that marketing strategy. So shout out to all the students. I think that the Zoom has also got some bad to it. It's certainly a lot less personal interaction, Another example of how things have changed forever. I don't think we're ever going to see restaurants as crowded as we've seen in the past. You ever had one of those circumstances where you sit down at a restaurant, guys, and you can hear all the conversation at the next table? And you always kind of wonder, wow, if they sneeze or cough, I wonder how safe this is. And I always just assumed that it was safe because no one was getting sick. Well, now people have gotten sick. Yeah.
But Dave, I'm kind of jealous. I want to get out.
Oh, I want to get out too. We'll talk about pent up demand in a couple of minutes. But I don't know. I think things have changed. By gosh, I hope that they change airplanes, make them a little less crowded on a go forward basis. Having that middle seat out, I guess, has been really nice for folks. I never thought it was fun to have, that middle seat where you're all cramped together. And I always used to be seated next to the gentleman that was like size plus, and it was pretty uncomfortable on a long ride, especially if you're going somewhere long. But things have changed. It's changed, some for the better, some for the worse. And when you think about it, a year later, here we are. We've endured. Think about this. We do major testing now. I saw an article in the paper yesterday that said that the city of Los Angeles has now done more tests than the population of the city. Yeah, that's a pat on the back. That's pretty amazing to me. We have 2 vaccines out and a third on the way, and we did this in less than a year. That's mind-boggling.
Yeah, that
astounding. Continues to blow me away. Used to take 8 to 10 years to do a vaccine. And they're not even injecting weakened coronavirus like they have in prior vaccines. They came up with a completely different way to design a vaccine, a model now that they can use for other viruses. Blows my mind. Just absolutely blows my mind. We're approaching a 15% vaccine rate. Now, by the first of the year, it was kind of a train wreck for a while, but 15%, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And for a lot of other things in our lives, we figured out workarounds for stuff, workarounds for going into work, workarounds for showing up in court, workarounds for things like depositions and things like that. It's pretty amazing how resilient and creative and clever we can be if we work together and just don't argue and carpet each other too much, So moving forward, there's a bright light on the horizon. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but there was a Wall Street Journal article just this past week, and it was discussing potentially an end to the coronavirus. Soon, by the way. And now I've seen similar articles in the LA Times and the New York Times just over this past weekend. What? Could we be towards the end of this coronavirus thing? Now, it's always going to be with us, like the flu is and so many other things. But the majority of the hardship behind us, what?
Dave, I am shocked.
And did you guys see this? Did you see this? I read it and I was blown away.
Well, I'll tell you what I was blown away about is that, did you hear Israel is planning to be at a 0% infection rate in June?
I think that's incredible. That's incredible. Now,
I love this.
We got to give credit where credit's due, or at least frame that that statement, because Israel's got a smaller population and a very confined geography. But the fact that they're doing that, mind blowing. Hats off to the Israelis. It's amazing. But getting back to these articles, the numbers in these 3 articles, Wall Street Journal, LA Times, New York Times, they vary a little bit because they're doing statistical analysis. So I want to relate to you what was in the Wall Street Journal, because it's the most optimistic and the pedigree of the author is impeccable. And the Wall Street Journal printed it first. So I want to talk about their numbers. So there's this article written by Dr. Marty Markary, and he's a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine and Bloomberg School of Public Health. And he predicts that due to herd immunity, COVID will be mostly gone by April. 60 days. That's pretty bold.
Brian, how does that affect your lottery tickets? well, I can tell you how that affects my stocks.
So I got to tell you, I'm reading this article, and as I say, always check the source. So I'm looking at this article, and this doctor, this fellow, he's a doctor and professor at Johns Hopkins, and one of the most reliable sources for coronavirus information, and certainly a world-renowned medical facility. So that's good. It's printed in the Wall Street Journal, usually a pretty good source. Everything in the paper is always true, right, guys?
Absolutely, Dave.
Absolutely.
I believe everything I read.
Yeah, absolutely. But I got to say, Wall Street Journal, okay. However, now this is interesting. It was contained on the opinion section of the Wall Street Journal. So maybe because the doctor was stepping out quite so far, they decided to put it on the opinion section. It was certainly written in the first person. So, we'll take it with a grain of salt. But then when the LA Times jumped in with different quotes from different experts, and the New York Times jumped in with different statistics and different sets of experts, that's when I really started to think, wow, maybe this is a thing. Maybe we're getting close. Maybe it's not April, but maybe we're close. And by far, it was really the most optimistic piece I've seen in a long time. In fact, probably the best piece of news I've seen since what, January, when they said that, or maybe it was December, when the results of the vaccine trials were starting to come back.
Trials came in.
Right? You remember back, what, it was 8-9 months ago, the first person was getting the shot, in the trials. And we were saying, all right, let's go for it. Let's get this information. And then the trial results came back in December. And then in January, we saw the first person, in the world get the injection. And it was kind of like a sci-fi thing. It was so surreal. And here we are, maybe looking towards the end of this thing. So this was the doctor's thinking. He says cases are down 77% over the last 6 weeks. In fact, I saw something in the local newspapers that said that there were 7,000 confirmed cases per day on the average more recently. And they were up to, I don't know what it was, 35, 40,000 just a month or two ago. So the number of reported cases are down dramatically. And the doctor said this can't be all due to the vaccines because only 15% have been injected. He says rather he thinks it's the effects of herd immunity. Now, I've heard this talked about a little bit before, but the concept of herd immunity is that when a large number in a population gets sick and then they are resultingly immune, the virus can no longer continue to spread because there aren't enough people in close proximity, and it rapidly peters out and then almost dies. Never goes away completely, but almost dies because it can't spread. When this thing first hit our shores, none of us had any kind of immunity. Our bodies had no way to deal with it, and it spread like wildfire. And he goes on to say that testing's only captured 10 to 25% of the total infections because when the virus infects people, most are asymptomatic. That's one of the reasons that it spread so fast, because you couldn't just stay away from people with, vomiting and fever. You didn't know if they were necessarily sick. And as a result, the majority of the people that have had it, who have been infected, didn't even know it. And as a result, it's quite possible, if they do the mathematical calculation, that as much as 55% of the population has actually had the coronavirus, even though there have only been a total of 28 million confirmed cases.
Wait, Dave, I have to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
So are you saying that out of the 4 of us right now, 2 of us could have had the coronavirus?
Not could, probably did, statistically.
Wow, I am
What?
shocked.
Did you feel like you got it? You didn't get it, did you, Nick?
I'm gonna abstain from that.
Oh my
I'm not
goodness.
saying I did or did not did not feel like I had it, but no. With all jokes aside, I had a cough one time and I went to get tested, and I showed up negative, and that's the only time I've had symptoms. But
Right?
I could have been asymptomatic. I just don't know.
You never know. How about you, Brian?
I know for a fact that I do not have it right now. I've been tested multiple times.
Okay.
Actually got tested this week. So
You're negative.
I'm negative. So
Yep.
it's got to be you two then.
Yeah. I got to tell you, way back in January, I had a bad flu. And I lost my sense of taste, fever, chill, everything. And I thought, wow, I just got unlucky and had a bad case of the flu. They were only talking about coronavirus in other countries. I went to the doctor. First question he said is, have you traveled abroad or met anyone recently, who's come from abroad? And I said, no. And he said, well, I think you got a really bad cold, gave me an antibiotic. And that was the end of that. But I'm going, wow, that was kind of a rough flu. And the common thought was at that point that it hadn't reached our shores in January. This was like second week in January. So who knows? Maybe that's what it was, and maybe the virus was floating around on our shores before that. I'll never know. But in April, May, I gave blood, and one of the reasons that I do that, aside from it's a good thing to do, was they were doing antibody testing, and my blood came back negative on the antibodies. So either the antibody had worked its way out, or I really just had a bad cold. We'll never know.
You gave blood in April, you said?
April, May, yeah.
So about 4 months after.
About 4 months, yeah. So who knows? I mean, I'll never know. I was hoping that by the time I gave blood that they would find antibodies, because I wanted to be invincible, right? But I'll never know. I'll never know. So. All right, going back to the statistical analysis, if we follow along the numbers that this doctor is presenting, and that 55% of the population is immune, and another 15% of the American population has received the vaccine and they're immune, that means that our immunity could be as high as 70% of the population. Now, it may not be that high. I mean, we don't know for sure, but it certainly is a possibility. And experts differ as to when herd immunity may kick in. A lot of experts, though, seem to think it's in the 70 to 90% range. If you look at the New York Times article, they have a number of really good charts, and all those charts project 70 to 90% is where we hit herd immunity. And then the virus will start to die out. So if that's the case, is it possible that this will soon be behind us? Again, just a bright ray of light on the horizon, something we haven't had in quite some time. And certainly I wouldn't have expected it to peter out and die even in the next couple of months. I thought there was more life to this thing, but maybe nature is taking its course, and maybe we're building this herd immunity. I don't know.
Dave, it's kind of nice to actually use numbers to try and have a positive outcome. We're using the math now to see when it's going to be over versus how bad is it going to get.
Yeah.
100%. I love it.
Yeah. And I think that it gives people something to look forward to, gives people something to think about, rather than, oh, you got to stay home more and more and more, which we needed to do to some extent, in my opinion. But yeah, numbers on the plus side it's kind of breathtaking. It's a breath of fresh air. It's a ray of light to me. So, bear in mind, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is my opinion.
Dave,
it's
you are a
of
doctor. Dave, you are a doctor.
I'm a doctor of laws, not of medicine. Yeah. I would say hit your head with a book and call me in the morning, right? But there's articles in 3 really respected publications, and they're using different sources, and they're coming up with about the same conclusions. So I recommend that you check those out and use that as maybe some forward light. Of course, there's some ways to challenge this research or this opinion. A lot of people are going to go back to, is the coronavirus real? Is it really a thing? Well, come on. I think pretty much it is. Let's talk to, almost 500,000 people they didn't lose their lives because of it, but their death, their ultimate death, was potentially rapidly accelerated because of it. And that is just, heart-wrenching. Will the immunity wear off? Who's to know? Well, when I got my blood test in April, May, the thought was, well, maybe it's starting to wear off. We don't know. But there was a 2008 study that found that people who were alive during the Spanish flu in the 1890s still had T cells. And T cells are the coating that produces the antibodies. So maybe this will stick around for a long time. We just don't know. Is the virus going to mutate? I mean, that's a big concern at this point, but we just don't know. So far, the mutations have been pretty much covered by the vaccination. We don't know. There's stuff we don't know, but maybe, just maybe, we are well on our way to having this thing licked. Just maybe. Now, what do you guys think? Does this mean we should stop wearing masks and social distancing and doing carry-out food where you get home and a delicious dinner is now cold?
Well, I think Brian has a way different opinion than me. So, Brian, go first.
No, you got to keep wearing the masks. I'm wearing two. I wear them when, whenever I take my walks along the beach. I don't think there's been any confirmed cases of COVID being spread from being outdoors. Just randomly walking by someone.
Right.
But no, grocery store, I'm not going back to eat in a restaurant indoors for a while until I get the shots, and so long it's going to take me to get the shots. So no, keep doing what we're doing.
You're a younger dude. You're not eligible for the vaccination yet,
I'm
right?
not eligible.
Although I heard, who was it, Fauci or somebody said that by April, they thought that everybody who wanted it was going to be able to get to it. So
I thought Brian was hitting 60 by next week.
Yes, that's right. I am. So I get the good call, Nick. Good call, buddy.
Now, Nick, you're even younger, so you're not. I mean, you're probably among the last to be in line for a vaccination, eh?
I agree. And as a future lawyer, hopefully, we're not getting vaccinations anytime soon. So, I will get it when it's offered.
Sure.
But in regards to masks, living in San Diego, I love the outdoors. And I personally, and this is not, reflective TFWP, but I don't think a mask is necessary outside. And that's my personal view. But like Brian said, if you're in a grocery store, if you're in close proximity of someone else, just wear a mask. I think it's the appropriate thing. And I think it's very respectful. But
Yeah.
that's my view.
Yeah. It's so easy to do. I had some guys come help me out in the backyard last weekend, 3 guys actually, and they all wore masks. And I appreciated it. And in fact, I wore a mask because I thought that they would appreciate it. And it was a little more uncomfortable. And yeah, it was. But we were all very respectful of each other and appreciative of having the opportunity to work together. And we all did what we needed to do. So,
and you know what? Wearing a mask, that's the big hardship compared to World War I, World War II,
yeah.
other events in our history.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I think it's just, as we've said, it's the respectful thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what we did at the office? I was going to surprise you guys, but I forgot about it. We got some, what are they, 95, N95 or whatever masks in a nice gray color. And we had them stamped and it says debt sucks. And underneath it, the Financial Wellness Podcast.
I would wear that. Dave, send me one.
I would wear that too.
I would wear that.
I'll send it to you. It's classic. People look at me and they go, what? What?
Dave.
Debt sucks? Yeah, but what's the financial wellness? Well, I'm glad you asked.
Well, Dave, how about if someone sends in an email, we send one to a listener?
Done deal. Anybody out there, if you want a debt sucks mask, go to the website, thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. Send us an email saying, hey, I want one of them. And we'll send it out to you because I think it's kind of fun. All right. So you guys, now you're thinking, how does this relate to wellness, financial wellness? I like all this information. Thanks a lot. But how does this relate to financial wellness, right?
Yeah, bring us home.
Well, I think the answer is it's quite possible that a good portion of the economy, now a different economy, will be back online shortly. And I think it's time to start developing a plan for that possibility and the opportunities that it'll bring. I mean, think about this. This whole economy is going to come back to life, a different economy with new areas of opportunity in the economy, some portions of the economy that have died and have gone away forever. But what an opportunity. And I think for those that are still out of work, get ready to start looking. More importantly, rather than just going back to your same old job, think about this. What would be a fantasy position for you? Don't go back to the same old job. Where are the new jobs are going to be? Where's the fun stuff? Where's the interesting stuff going to be? These are things to start thinking about because there's going to be abundant opportunity just around the corner. And it seems to me for our listeners, it's the time to start thinking about it so that you can get a jump on everybody else. What is it they say? Early bird gets the worm? Doesn't sound too appetizing sometimes, but I think it makes a good point. You know, a good example would be wake up in the morning and think about, wow, what would be the most exciting job I could have today? If I was going to work for someone else, what's the most exciting industry that I could be involved in? You know, movies, radio, podcasts, you know, some kind of development of vaccines, who knows, whatever you want to do. You could do whatever you want to do because the whole thing is kind of starting fresh, you know. If you're an entrepreneur, it seems to me it's time to start thinking about your next preneur. I stole that line from Aaron Sorkin's Social Network, sorry. I mean, what kinds of needs are people going to have in this new economy? How might you help people fill these needs? You know, I've heard it said that the first business into a new market is the one that usually does this the best, especially in the electronic industry. And if this is the case, what business could you create to fill a new need? I'm going to ask the guys in just a minute. It might be that if you're working, you might only do this new business on the side for a while as a side gig until it takes off. And then you'd be able to tell your employer, look, I have to leave because I started this thing on the side and it's taking so much of my attention and it's so lucrative. It would be foolish to continue to work for you. Wouldn't that be a cool thing? The point is, start developing a plan now. You know, here are a couple examples. I got an email from a guy who was setting up a virtual personal assistant business. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thought. How about being a consultant for people to set up home Zoom studios or business studios? A lot of people still haven't caught on to the things that we've talked about, guys, in terms of how you should set up a Zoom studio and use Zoom or Team for maximum effectiveness. How about setting up Zoom studios for happy hours? A lot of people are doing family reunions and happy hours. How about cooking classes for groups on Zoom? I know somebody that did cooking classes in-house, and she was a highly trained chef, and people would come over and they'd make stuff together. And, you know, that could be done on Zoom. The ingredients could be sent ahead of time and they could have a complete cooking experience on Zoom. I saw a guy that was doing dog training on Zoom. Now, how do you train a dog on Zoom? How do you get Fido to look at the screen and go, sit or listen to, stand up, shake? I don't know, but maybe
Well,
they figured it out.
Dave, I have to ask you, can I pay for this on Bitcoin? I'm just wondering.
I think you're sitting on a big pile of Bitcoin and it's burning a hole in your pocket, huh?
What is it? I invoke my Fifth Amendment right.
There you go. I know you're into that, and it's too unclear to me, but yeah, I guess you probably could. Check this out. During the holidays, I knew a guy that was putting together, not for profit, but for fun, but it certainly could have been for profit, a bartending class. And he built a little bar somewhere in his house, and he had a couple of phones. So they were using two feeds, you know, an above feed and a straight on feed. And he had created some custom cocktails for the holidays, including one with ground up peppermint flakes on the rim, and it had some kind of schnapps or peppermint or chocolate or something in it. And there were a whole bunch of people watching this going on, and everybody had a ball. You could
Dave,
give people instructions on how to do that.
I think this is a great date idea. So you invite your partner over
Mm-hmm.
and you say, hey, let's do this. Let's each do this. Let's set up this cocktail and let's try it. I think it's a really good idea.
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Have you done it before?
Well, I was involved in this bartending class that this guy did. Yeah, we were sitting there, we mixed up stuff, and it was great. Of course, I was mixing up something maybe a little stronger than peppermint flakes on the rim. But
Of course.
I did a Zoom painting with a painting instructor.
Really?
So they sent out a little canvas, probably 2 feet by 2 feet.
Nice.
They send you paint brushes and some paints, and then the instructor hops on, and everyone just kind of paints away and learns a little something.
Wow, that'd be
A lot
fun.
of fun.
But I mean, this leads to a whole new thought process in terms of business opportunities, stuff for people to do out there, people to think in a different way. And it's coming, and it turns out it might be coming a lot faster than what we think. I personally think this is going to be an incredibly exciting time the next year. I've often thought about the mood of the population after the Spanish flu in the late 1800s, when this cloud was lifting from the population and people were looking around, and it's like, hey, what are we going to do now? What is the future going to look like? And of course, it was the roaring 20s, and some would say a period of unprecedented prosperity spending, and some would say excess. But I think we're heading into that. The economy is shifted. It is going to reopen, and it is going to be as exciting as can be. And I think the question is, how can our listeners take advantage of that as part of their financial wellness? Wow, look at that. Guys, we're out of time. We're not going to do any emails. Thank you, Nick, for joining us.
Thanks, Dave.
Brian, as always, a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you guys.
Tune in next week. We got another interesting show that we're working on for you. This is Dave Hagan, and you've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Remember, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications, or share the podcast via the app with your family and friends. This is your announcer, Nick Appel, wishing you every financial success.